call the meeting to order. It is 10:02. And I'll do the roll call. Steve Reinhardt.
Mr. Reinhardt, are you on the phone? Okay.
No, was he supposed to be?
That's why I set up the go-to meeting. He was possibly going to call him. He may call him later, but...
Lee Warren.
Yep.
Brad Phillips.
Here.
Barbara Evans.
Here.
Doyle Williamson. Is he on the phone?
No, I didn't send... He didn't ask for the content.
Okay. Matt Hart.
Here.
Is Greg Eakin still on the...
He's on the committee, but he's not in the
He's not
state, so he didn't
participating.
call him either, so...
Okay. And then, agenda item 1.
You want to go around the table?
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Everybody that's
That's all right.
the track. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Kristen Warman, Deputy General Counsel.
Gwen Jackson, Director of Education and Licensing Services.
Michael Malloy, Staff Attorney.
Bill Jones, Commissioner.
Jennifer Wheeler, Education Manager.
Tony Slagle, Government Affairs and Committee Liaison.
Okay, and any visitors?
William Baldwin, Apprentice Inspector.
Paul Hudson with the Mayor's Pick.
Sylvia Best,
Roy Carter, Champion School of Real Estate.
Okay, thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it.
If I can just make one
Sure.
request. If anyone from the audience is speaking, I noticed in the last video that one was difficult to hear with the mic, so if you guys could just stand and speak up so we can have you on the record, that would be great.
Okay, and does anybody have any public meeting comments you want to make on either a specific agenda item or on any general comments?
Yeah, just fill out the sheet and you can hand it to me and I'll make sure the chair gets it.
All right, so the ratification of the minutes of February 3rd, 2017. Did everybody get a chance to look at those? Was there any changes?
I was not able to open that link, by the way.
You weren't? Did anyone else have a problem opening up the minutes?
I mentioned before
No?
we sent out the link.
Okay, I will, I'll see what the issue is, okay.
But I read the transcript anyway.
Okay.
Online.
Well, the only thing I noticed on the transcript online, which is, right beside it where you click, was you spelled my name wrong in one place and right in another.
I'm sorry.
It's okay though.
Was it the end?
No, at the very beginning.
Was it one of the-
But you got better as you went.
I'll fix that,
I know,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
And
That's
No,
Like
that's
Rose
okay,
is
I
so
do that,
easy.
I do
No,
that all
I
the
know, it's
time.
the first
I
one.
apologize, did I forget the end?
Yeah,
I'm
but
sorry.
it's okay.
I'll
I
fix
mean,
it.
that was the only thing I saw. Everything else.
I will definitely fix that.
clicked
Is it
in.
the first mention of your name?
I think so.
Okay.
It's in the, when we did the roll call.
Okay, apologize.
Agenda item 1. Okay, so now we're down to general comments
No,
from
we need-
visitors.
We need a motion to ratify.
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
minutes. That's okay.
Does anybody?
So moved.
Second.
And, everybody,
That's the indication.
any discussion?
That's the wrong website.
I know, but that's what your link points said.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody against? So,
Just real quick while we're still on that, that may be that your cache to the, or your cache to the old website, and that may be why you're getting that clear cache. You might be able to get the new link. Because what Lee just showed me was it went to the old website, and that's why it was dead. It was a dead link. Did yours go to the old website too? Okay. Anyway, I'm
Mine
sorry to
did.
interrupt.
I'm on the new website now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you.
okay, so, all right, any general, well, we do have general comments. Paul Hudson from the Mayor's Back.
Yes. Just briefly, I wanted to thank Mr. Warren and Dr. Evans for speaking with me Friday. I believe Tony's got somebody set up for me to speak to me a little bit about the licensing requirement on the experience end of it. I had some questions on that, and it was kind of a really short fuse. Came up Friday. Decided I hadn't been to Austin in a while, so I got up this morning, came down from DFW. By the way, y'all's traffic is not as bad as your neighbor to the north coming through the Temple area. That's nuts.
You're gonna hurt my feelings.
But you're trying hard, I'll give you that. But anyway, I think I'm taken care of as far as a contact to speak with. And I wanted to thank you guys for allowing me that opportunity. So I'll be over here quiet as a mouse, just listening to how things work. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody else? Alrighty, so reports from subcommittees. Did any of the subcommittees meet? Because I know we don't really have all the subcommittees.
Well,
full.
the education subcommittee met after the last full committee to deal with those issues that they were directed to deal with, which
Right.
was the course outline to submit to the commission for proposal, and then any comments, any issues with the course, with the course that A&M was working on, to iron those out before we submitted them to format the course. But they didn't meet. None of them have met since then. I will, if I may, will say that we have a formatted version of the course back. It doesn't have the table of contents yet or a cover, but everything else has been done, and we're going to send it out to all of you for a review of any non-substantive typos or anything that we need to correct before it gets published.
Basically, we're asking for extra eyes to help us proofread
Yeah, just
and make
yeah.
sure we've gotten all the typos and
Yeah,
everything.
And when will we see that?
I'll send it out today.
Okay.
Good.
Does that work, sir?
Sure.
Okay.
And if possible, we'd like any sort of comments back by Friday.
Okay.
What are you me for?
That's your forte.
I mean, the thing is, the content should be the same. It's just the formatting of it, and in the translation of the format, we want to make sure there wasn't anything. We're going to be reviewing it too, but just make sure there weren't any issues with, words missing or things misspelled or things of that nature. So.
You're just the Uber editor. We
We rely on it.
That's a really nice way
It's
to
a
put it,
gift.
Barbara.
It's a gift.
Actually, it is.
That's right.
Okay, so any more discussion on item 4? Alrighty, so agenda item 5, the staff reports, and I don't know, who do you want to go first, the order that we have in here?
Do you want
It's
to?
like enforcement's up on the screen.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to briefly mention that, just give a brief mention about from AMS, and let you guys know of one. There's not any bills amending your statute 1102, but I do think you need to be aware that just so you're aware of it. Let's see, where is it? That there is a bill has been filed that deals with CSST. And it essentially what it does is it requires it to conform to the standards of the 2008 International Residential Code, and
2008.
There's not
That's what it says.
No.
Well, it
International
says,
Residential Code.
or to
There
a
isn't.
Oh,
version
there's a
There's
2009.
6 and 9.
Yeah.
that is adopted by the ordinance
12,
of the
no,
largest
15.
municipality.
Well, there's 15.
There is
Yeah.
15, yeah.
Anyway, this doesn't put any additional burdens in terms of anything the inspector needs to do. But, this has been something we've talked about at the meetings several times, so I just wanted you guys to be aware that this is out there. It's been filed, it has not been heard yet, and I will keep you guys posted about that. In terms of any other legislation that impacts you guys, there are several bills out there that touch on the regulatory authority of the agency, which of course you guys make recommendations for rules, and I'll keep you guys apprised of any of those that pass. But there's, there's a bill that would say if you raise a fee, you need to repeal 2 rules that raise a fee equal to or more than that fee you're going to raise, and there's also different oversights on rulemaking in terms of what governmental body will review the rules that the agency does to make sure they comply with certain things, but nothing that directly impacts the licensing of inspectors.
So basically, a few bills of people that think things sound really good on paper, but in reality,
Yeah.
What's the number on this one, Tony?
I'm sorry, it is it's SB 1715 by Hall.
So whoever wrote that needs to correct it.
Okay.
I mean, just because there's no such thing as a 2008
Yep.
International Residential Code.
It
So
probably ought to go to 2015.
unless
Well,
they're
there's
looking at
this,
plumbing
as
code
Kristen
or-
pointed out, there's this caveat about the version of the code that's adopted by ordinance of the largest municipality in the county. So that would supersede that, but,
Well, but if there is no 2008 version,
wrong.
even
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
problematic.
Yeah,
because
they're
it says
referencing
at least
something that
as
doesn't exist.
stringent
Yeah.
I
as-
got you. Okay.
Just makes it.
So,
Well, we
It
will,
makes it not look like it was well
thought out.
researched.
we will,
Surprise.
okay, we'll,
I know that's nothing to do with us.
no, it's,
But-
and, no, we'll,
Just send an email to Mr. Kamal. This is-
we'll let the powers that be know about that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's anything else, AMS-wise. Do you have anything, Kristen, we need to report? Okay,
I'm not aware of anything.
okay. So, next up.
Okay, so do we want to do enforcement first, since they're next on the list? Their charts first on mine.
Sorry.
Mike Malloy, staff attorney. First page here is the disciplinary action that we've taken since the last meeting. I will note, just to let you know, even though this is a disciplinary action type of report, probationary licenses, we put that on as a courtesy just to let the committee know. It's not considered disciplinary action because these people are new applicants. They're just put on probation for the determined period of time, and that's usually, that probationary status is removed after they've met that, so.
So it's just a condition on their license when they first
Yes,
receive their
yes.
license?
But it's not, it doesn't, after they meet that probationary period, it doesn't stick with them thereafter.
So what is entitled in a probationary period? I mean, what's different for probationary versus, I mean, is it just one complaint and they've pretty much gone, or I mean, what's?
It really depends, because everyone has their own due process,
Right.
so we'd prove it up like any other case. But, we could use it against them, basically, because there's a condition in the agreed order, in the probationary agreed orders that says you must comply with Chapter 1101 or 1102. So we could just say, we could use that as an additional factor in doing it. In some cases, not usually for new applicants, we'll have conditions that would temporarily suspend them until they comply with a certain term. It happens more likely with like salespeople, because they're supposed to notify their brokers, new sponsoring brokers supposed to notify us that they've received the agreed order. If they don't do that within a certain time period, then they're suspended until the broker senses that.
Okay.
We do the same thing for real estate inspectors that are sponsored by professional inspectors. But, I've only done one of those in the past couple of years, so. Otherwise, we have 4 agreed orders or final orders, and then 3 advisory letters.
Anybody have any?
The unlicensed activity, that wasn't our,
No, he's gone.
okay,
This is a different guy.
okay.
When you say he's gone, was it resolved, or is he just?
No,
gone
no,
off
he's
the
talking
list?
about an individual before you were on the committee.
He's got
We
like
had a
6.
couple.
He's got like 6.
We
Oh, I
had,
was thinking of the person that,
he racked up about 15, 20,000 in
Oh, he was at 35. Yeah.
He just kept popping up in Lee's life.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
He's up in DFW, keep doing.
What happened to him?
He hasn't been licensed since what, 2006, I
Yeah,
think?
But
yeah.
he's not inspecting it.
I don't know. He hasn't had a
He's not
complaint.
supposed
We don't
It's not
receive, we
popped
haven't
up in your
received
life.
any complaints
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
in a few
Any
years,
complaints?
so.
Okay, okay. So, anybody else have any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, education and licensing is the next one.
Gwen Jackson, Director of Education and Licensing Services. The first report before you is the L1A report, which provides for you the fiscal year comparison for the number of apps received, licenses issued from those apps, as well as renewal activity. And as you can see, in terms of applications received, we're staying fairly consistent. There's a slight drop, 3.9% in total original applications that have been received. Total licenses issued from original applications, there's a slight increase, 26%, from 349 in fiscal year February 2016 to 441 this year. In terms of renewal activity, 824 inspectors have renewed as of today. That's 77.5% of those who were sent renewal notices renewed. And then that middle column there shows you last fiscal year to date that 283 renewed, which was over 68.5% of those that were eligible to renew. And then that very last column there is a comparison of renewal periods, a 2-year term. And those were 720, 71% of those who were sent renewal notices did renew.
400 new licensees just in this fiscal year. We only have 3,000 total inspectors.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big percentage.
I know. That's significant.
We were worried.
That's what happens when the market's crazy.
Yeah.
Take care of those 10,000 real estate license holders that aren't doing anything either.
The next report is the L2 report, and this report gives us the total number of license holders that we've got. It gives the totals for each month for the prior year. As you'll see, for February 2017, we have a total of 3,679 inspectors compared to last year, February of 2016, which is the far left corner. You'll see 3,390 inspectors. So we've increased by about 289 over the past year.
Okay. Any questions?
And the next report is the L3 report. This provides us the inspector examination activity. We see that since September, 30 real estate inspector applicants have taken the exam, and 559 professional inspectors have taken the exam. The first attempt pass rates are at 38.1% for real estate inspectors and 49.2% for professional inspectors. As a comparison, next door to that are the 2016 figures for the same time period. And you'll see that real estate inspectors were at 14.8% pass rate, first attempt pass rate this time last year, and professional inspectors were at 49.1%.
So that's a pretty significant improvement on the first attempt pass rate for the real estate inspectors.
Across the board on the real estate inspectors, it's a pretty significant improvement, but it's actually a decline on the professional side.
Slightly. It's still not above 50%. So what do we think the difference is in the 38% compared to the 14.8? Education?
Yeah, I believe it has to do with education. You all have worked on improving
Rigor and relevance.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Hope so. So now we just need to keep up the good work. These guys to pass first time every time.
Well, and it's probably hard statistically for the real estate inspectors to get a meaningful percentage, because it could just be those specific applicants from last year. Maybe they didn't have enough time to study, or, they had other things going on. Whereas, on the professional side,
There's no change.
it's, at least on the first attempt, it's pretty equal.
Static.
Right.
Which is, yeah.
You have more applicants,
Yeah.
more examinations being taken.
But it's pretty, yeah, so, but I think
But
a
then
20% improvement or so-ish on the real estate inspectors has to be significant.
no, that- I mean,
for
that's-
any- So
Yeah.
that
That's
means
good.
something, and that means that
Mm-hmm.
we're going in the right direction as far as education, and the schools are definitely going in the right direction to help them pass on their first attempt. But the pass rate overall is 66.7%, so that's improved significantly too, so.
Well, the other thing it tells me is, when looking at this and that previous report, the fears that people had about the ride-alongs, keeping people from becoming
Right.
inspectors,
Obviously
just not an
that's-
issue.
Yeah, yeah.
we pushed that date back, pushed it back, and
There's a
finally
lot
just
of
said, we've
concern.
got to stop. We
Yeah.
stopped, and they're like, oh, okay. And they just, funny how that just worked itself
Worked
right on
itself
out.
out.
Yeah, and the ride-alongs definitely have to make a difference, because that's putting, your book with your hands and your eyes actually touching and doing the work and walking around the house with somebody who can really make it all real for you. So that's impressive, I think.
I'm actually getting more now that are getting newly licensed that want to just shadow. I mean, not because they need it to count, but just because they want one-on-one
Right.
time on doing it. Whereas I very rarely got that before, but now ever since the ride-along started, they see the ride-alongs that happens through some of the schools and whatnot. There's just too many people and not learning enough, but I really want to go out with somebody. So I kind of see it as a good sign. It's kind
That's a
of
good sign.
poking people to say, hey,
Yeah.
just get some real-world experience before you get out there and start charging money.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah.
really good. I don't, in my area, there's not a lot of, I never get a call for anything. I'm not a ride-along instructor, but I could sponsor. I don't get very many calls at all. So I think it's just location where you are. Maybe you get maybe more new inspectors or something. Any questions, anybody else? Okay. Continue, please.
And the next report is the L4 report, which gives us information on our instructor distribution. The bottom portion of that page are the inspector instructors. And as you will see, we've got fairly good number of instructors for qualifying and ICE electives. We went from 94 in February of 16 to 112. And the ride-along course, there was some fear that we would not get enough ride-along instructors, but we've seen an increase of at least 16 during this year. And we haven't had any calls or anything from anyone seeking a ride-along instructor that have been unable to find one.
That's good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other staff reports? Because I don't.
If I may, though, just interrupt for a moment. Did someone call in during the meeting? We need to make a record of your presence if you're on the line.
Yes, this is Andrea with Terry, Andrea Bernard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So now we're going to move on to agenda item 6, discussion and possible action regarding comments pertaining to amendments A, 22, TAC 535.218, continuing education required for renewal.
So we didn't receive any comments from anybody about any of these proposed rules at all, at least that I'm aware of. I mean, I didn't, Chris did. I don't know if any of you guys received any comments, but these were proposed at the last commission meeting for comment, and along with the course outline for the 4-hour SOP review course, and we received no feedback from anybody about it. I do have, I know in the materials I sent you what we had proposed, but Jen is actually, since we're on this, I'll bring this up. Has formatted the course outline, one that was proposed to look actually like a course outline. So, but that being said, I didn't know if you guys wanted to had any comments or address any issues about any of these rules. You know, we can take them one at a time, or we can address them. Yes, sir.
On page 1 of 11,
Mhm.
are we missing subsection C?
Let's see.
And Brad, can you tell them you're busy?
One of 11, subsection C.
Yes, years of
See,
three.
B
Right there.
is right along, and then
And then
it
D is
goes-
right below it, but there's no
C
C.
is below it.
That is a good question.
We have it in.
So you have B right there by your cursor, right along inspection course. Goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it goes boop,
Let's see what
right to
the
1 again. And then right below is D.
says.
So there should be a subsection C there. We're missing something.
Unless it was just renumbered incorrectly and was corrected in the...
Well, no, because you have that blue section to be approved by commission. So she's-
Yeah, but once it's filed in the, these are from the materials that were provided to the commission. Once it's filed with the register always contacts us and deals with non-substantive changes, like, oh, this was renumbered incorrectly, so it may have been, I may have
C goes right above 1.
Right.
There, it's not shown there. It was shown, it's mandatory standards of practice review course. And then 1 is to be approved by the commission.
So we're just missing the C line that's not shown?
Yes,
Okay, that's what I wanted to...
yes, but it was proposed
with it.
with it.
So you're going to make that correction?
It doesn't need to be corrected other than it's just, it was
okay.
my
It's not
fault.
shown
I
here.
evidently, in getting the materials together, I somehow deleted C. So I'm sorry.
As long as it's there.
Didn't think it was that important.
I'm proofreading.
I apologize.
Is that two on contract?
The Uber.
It is.
If we're keeping track, yes.
No, I appreciate that. You need to keep me especially on my toes.
All right, then I had another another question
Yes, sir.
on the outline itself.
Yes, sir.
The SOP outline.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the one that was formatted?
Yeah, the one we have on agenda.
One we have on our agenda.
Okay.
Not,
It's a 4-hour course, but the time doesn't actually add up to 4 hours.
is it because of a break time?
But that's not
200
really
hours.
listed there. There's only 200 minutes there, and not 240
50-minute
minutes.
hours.
Yeah.
By rule, they're 50 minutes. They need 10
Because
minute
of the
breaks.
breaks. Yeah.
And 10-minute breaks.
Okay. That's fine.
Any other suggestions or questions about the approval form?
You guys want to see the formatted version?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's much prettier.
Yeah.
It's the content's essentially the same. It's just formatted to like the other one. Yes, sir.
Good job.
So do we need to make any motion for
Yeah,
approval?
we need to make a motion to recommend approval of the rules.
Okay. Of just A, or do we want to do all of them?
You can do. I mean, unless you guys want to go through all of them separately, we can. I don't know if anyone had any questions. You can take them all as a. Is that right, Kristen? They can take them all as a. You can take them all as one item.
I think that's easier instead of doing each one separately. So let's go ahead and move on to B, which is,
Oh, hold on a second. Kristen raised an issue. Let me see. why it was highlighted. That would be 3, Commissioner Jones.
We're gonna miss you.
Good thing this in baseball.
So,
Okay, so there's no reason why that section D.
no, I don't know why it was highlighted.
Your wife had just gone through the garage door.
Yes, probably.
You're a little traumatized.
So, again, sorry.
Okay, so we want to move on to,
We're just going through all of 6.
well, our
right?
agenda is weird, because it says A, B, A, C, D, E. So.
It's been a tough week.
I know, so we're just going to call it 22 TAC 53572, approval of non-elective continuing education courses. Because it looks like you skipped to 63 already.
No, 63 is above,
Yeah.
so it's 218, 63,
Oh, okay.
72,
I didn't know
74,
because you were already talking
201,
about it, so I didn't know.
212.
So it should be A through F.
Should be A through F.
Not a big deal. Alrighty. So is there any discussion about 535.63, other than removing the highlighted section? And there were no comments on it?
No, ma'am, no comments on any of this.
Correct.
Alrighty, so on 535.72, which would be C, any discussion about the approval of non-elective continuing education courses? Alright, so we'll move on to E? No,
D,
D, sorry, 22,
74.
535.74, approval of continuing education instructors. Was there any discussion about the changes we made in the approval of continuing education instructors? I read through some of this and it was kind of hard to read, but I don't now remember.
Well, most of the changes are just conforming changes dealing with the name of the course.
yeah.
The one that had the most changes, I believe, was 212, and that was to get rid of things that are no longer applicable. They've timed out in terms of when they were applicable.
Okay.
So it was just to clean the rule up since it was open.
Okay.
Get rid of that language that's not necessary anymore. So as Lee mentioned earlier, we postponed the ride along, and then we had the affidavit where you could sign it and still go through the old method. Well, that ended a year ago.
Okay.
And so we just want to take that out of the rules so it's not confusing to anybody.
Alrighty. Okay, so we'll move on to E, definitions, 535.201. And that looks pretty to the point. So was there any other discussions on that in the committee? Okay, so we'll move to 535.212, education and experience requirements for a license.
Yeah, this is the one I was speaking about where we took out the approved affidavit language and the various items that were, as well as making conforming changes about the new courses, but just take out the language.
Specific stuff and all that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so do we want to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve items A through F.
Recommend for
Recommend
adoption.
for adoption.
Okay, recommend for adoption.
Items A through F.
Second that.
That's a second. And any other discussion? All right, everybody in approval?
Aye.
And anybody against? Okay, so it passes, the motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, so we're on agenda item 7, discussion and possible action regarding comments pertaining to amendments to 22, 535, 227.
This was merely adding or where we had neglected, or we had removed it. We meaning probably me, removed it when it was proposed. So, and we
So-
received no comments on this one.
Okay, does this one also require a
Yes,
motion?
To recommend for approval,
Okay, so.
or adoption, I'm sorry.
Can anyone make a motion to recommend to adopt?
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, so everybody in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Alrighty, so the motion passes to recommend to adopt. Alrighty. Discussion number item 8, discussion and possible action regarding exempt CE providers, including clarifying the process for awarding CE credit from those providers.
I'll start off speaking to this agenda item. Tony, would you mind pulling up
I am
53571 little b?
Okay, so out of the
We don't have
rules.
that.
No, we
Yes.
don't have,
Out of the rules.
Yeah, no, I'll pull it up.
I don't think it was put in our.
no, it wasn't put in our data.
No little B for you.
You get a big A.
You just go to rules page.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
We're recording that.
Or, I love,
September.
I mean, commas are
Which is it?
important.
71.
That's right.
71, okay.
The punctuation stays alive.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
B.
little b. Little b talks about exempt providers, and this came up recently. I think we have some inspectors that are, I guess what we need to do is
71.
clarify the intent of the inspector committee and the education subcommittee with what's in the rule, and then provide clarification to staff as to how to process and award credit. So our current rule exempts providers. The following entities may offer real estate inspector continuing education without being approved by the commission. So what this says is that the provider themselves are exempt, but it doesn't talk about the course. So what we've done in the past is we acknowledge that a unit of federal, state, or local government, or a nationally recognized building, electrical, plumbing, mechanical, or fire code organization is not required to come to TREIC and seek out approval as a CE provider. However, our understanding has always been that the courses would still have to come to the commission for review by education staff to be approved. And that's how we've handled this historically. But I understand that there may be some inspectors who feel like this doesn't capture all of the education that one or more of your committee feel should be acceptable. So really, I'm just describing this to you for you to discuss. Let us know if there is something you want changed. Are there courses? Do you feel like the courses need to come to us before they can be accepted as CE credit? Are there courses offered by nationally recognized trade associations that you would like us to accept by default as long as the topic is relevant? Maybe provide us with guidelines in determining how the topic is relevant. I would probably default to the SOPs, maybe business practices, but if this is something that you want to do, let us know how you want to do that. I did some research. I looked into, I found 28 states in the US that require inspector licenses. And I looked into their continuing education requirements. I created this for you guys, but did not have it prepared in time to send it to you prior to the meeting. But what it shows is, out of these, 38% of CE providers, or of states, require all CE providers and courses to be approved, pre-approved, before they would be acceptable for CE credit. 31%, very similarly, require either course and provider pre-approval or have standards for accepting. There were variations of standards, but some were pre-approval or relevant courses that are offered by a nationally recognized trade association. Another one was relevant courses offered by Massachusetts education board and/or a regulatory agency. So there's flexibility in that end, but they're really close. So I don't know if that's something you want to consider as you make a determination here. It really wasn't that dramatic as far as whether all the courses have to be pre-approved or there's a standard for.
But isn't there another rule that speaks to inspector courses that we added some language to? Because when we did the quadrennial rule review, we inadvertently removed some language, and then we added it back that speaks to.
I think that was this in
No,
71 LB.
not exempt providers.
Okay.
I believe it was the exempt provider we added back in, because it was removed. And we put it
That's
back.
right.
And we just, we've got to clarify it some way to make it easier for the staff.
Yeah, well, I'd like to speak on this in general to begin with, because this is something that that I run into. I have my residential combination certification through ICC. So in order for me to keep that certification, it costs a fortune if I'm doing my CEs for TREIC and then my ICC continuing education hours, because theirs are pretty expensive too. And so they're, I think, under your exempt provider, and they provide classes for me that I can't get the same quality in a TREIC class. My electrical, just to get electrical, is an 8-hour course for my ICC that there's nothing that compares to the content and the quality of that course through a TREIC course. There just isn't. So it seems like what I'm getting through ICC's providers, whether it's directly from them, an online course, or one of their sub-providers that's approved by them, which is a national company that, for instance, electrical is only through a few providers with ICC. It seems as if they're above and beyond any course that I take as an approved TREIC course. And I'm not bashing TREIC courses, I'm just saying that you have to have your ICC license, you have to be a little bit more detailed. So it seems like that would be my opinion is, if their courses are so much better, then why wouldn't we just allow, under the exempt rule, the providers to keep up those licenses, to not have to submit all their courses? Because then I don't think they're going to. I don't know that they would get
Probably
bogged
not.
down in each state's submission. And I'm personally for just saying, if you're keeping up a license that's above and beyond your TREIC license, then those providers should be allowed without having to submit the courses.
A couple of things. One question I have for you is, so would you be saying that courses offered by ICC, which really we can already accept, or are you talking about any courses approved? Because there's a difference, like ICC has approved many courses for the license renewals.
Right.
So if I understand you correctly, you're speaking to those.
Right.
You would want those accepted.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah.
Well, here's.
And if you go on ICC's list of course providers, you just click. If I'm looking for
Right.
electrical, they're under my electrical course providers. And you have your ICC license.
Well, ICC is on one side of the spectrum. I mean, I think all of us can say that any ICC course, that deals with code is going to be.
It's not there.
Of higher
It's not on the
quality.
website, but it's in the rule.
Is going to be of higher quality. My problem is when you blanket everybody that falls into that exempt providers and basically saying all their courses. You know what I'm saying? I think that from a staff perspective, even if you as a student say, I'm going to take this course, and you submit that information to TREIC, say, is this something that will be approved before you take it, which more than likely, if it's ICC or something of that caliber, they're probably going to accept it, which they already have, then it shouldn't be an issue. I think
It's E.
I'm okay with not forcing them to become providers, because good luck.
Right,
Good luck getting them to do that. But I think the non-exempt providers, I think the way it is in having them, making sure that those courses have to be approved by TREIC is important. Those have to, because there has to be consistency across the board.
So how do we decide which ones are approved by TREIC? Or
Okay.
TREIC?
Well, like she said,
There's a rule.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Tony, if you'll highlight E, So if a continuing education course is offered by an exempt provider, an inspector may receive credit, continuing education elective credit for that course that's not approved if the course is offered by the exempt provider and the commission determines that the course covers subject matter appropriate for an inspector continuing education course and is current and accurate. So that provider,
That's the caveat.
Okay,
that's
but here's
the
the
caveat.
issue with
and
that.
this is what has been the practice, and this was the language that I was referring to that was
Right,
inadvertently
we added this
removed
recently.
and was reinserted when we discovered that it was removed.
Okay.
Where the issue lies with that, though, this course may not be provided by ICC, it may be by a third party.
Right.
Right.
And that's where it throws staff into a tizzy.
Because
Well, but
it's
it's not an exempt
TDLR.
provider.
Right, TDLR is not, this is an example. TDLR is not offering the course, but TDLR would qualify as an exempt provider.
Sure.
TDLR approves other CE providers and possibly their courses, but for example, an inspector might also hold a plumbing license. And so they go and take a course through a school that's approved to offer a plumbing course for TDLR, but we don't have a method to accept that for credit if you want us to accept that for credit, because Inspector CE provider ABC or plumbing CE provider ABC is not an exempt provider. TDLR is.
The course has just been approved by another licensing agency.
Licensing agency.
Or it's
So
an
what-
ICC course
That's what
offered
we
by a local, say,
Right.
for instance, I'm a member of the Bluebonnet chapter of the ICC.
Mm-hmm.
If we put an ICC course on, the certificate doesn't come from ICC, it comes from Bluebonnet.
Well, and Terry
And
does the
Bluebonnet
same thing.
does
They
not
do
exist.
ICC courses. It comes from Terry and not from ICC.
And that's where one of the issues came up,
That's the-
because we got some certificates for ICC courses, but they were not provided by ICC, which is the
That's-
exempt.
And that's where
Consistency is
Jennifer's
fuzzy.
Right.
staff is
Yeah.
in a real tizzy, how can they approve a
Yeah.
course from Bluebonnet ICC, even though it's an ICC course?
And Terry is not a provider,
They're not an exempt provider.
They're not in-
But they are an approved
But they
provider.
are
but they're an approved provider, so we can still approve that course and give credit.
So that's probably not the issue then. I
Right.
It's
think
not
what the
that,
issue
it's not that
is
particular, because they're an approved provider, but there's a lot of trade associations that go ahead and put courses on. They're ICC
Well,
or
and
NEC.
and
or
ICC
whatever it
also
may be.
has a program through they have third-party providers that they've approved to offer courses. That was the course I think we saw was a third-party, they were
One of
approved
them.
ICC provider. for
But the
course,
certificate
the
doesn't come from ICC, it comes
certificate does
from
not
third
come
party.
from, it comes from that third-party provider, and by the rules standards, they're not exempt.
So we either need to modify the rule or get more specific on how we're going to address these things. Because
We need to decide if you're going to allow those providers, those third parties that ICC has approved to either qualify as an exempt provider or require them to get approved as a course provider through TREIC.
Well, and
Yeah,
more than
which you're
just
never gonna
ICC
get.
though, too. I mean, ICC is a
They're
good
right.
example, but also
They're-
other regulatory agencies
But-
that are exempted.
Well, we make it sound like becoming a provider is so incredibly difficult, and it's not. I mean, it really is.
yeah,
It's
but Lee,
what,
that's not
$400?
the point.
Right.
There's so many different trade associations and sub-chapters of these various organizations.
Right, but don't you think it's in the best interest as a business owner of those trade associations to say, hey, I can actually market to more inspectors because you can get your courses, submitted for continuing education credit? Would it not be worth the $400 every few years to just become a provider?
Well, it's not that, then they would have to also get their courses approved too. So it's not just the $400.
They
but it's
have to
like-
submit.
There's a lot more to it.
So there's the pros and cons. Obviously, the pros would be we'd be able to accept, if we were to clarify, to accept more courses. The cons are something we've been struggling with over the last year, 2, 3 years, which is we're basically going to be delegating the authority of TREC staff to look at these courses and approve them and make sure they have content to someone else and just assume that they're meeting those requirements. So I'm not saying that's not the wrong thing, but just to understand that we've been trying to move away from not having so much of an oversight of the education, and this would possibly be a step backwards doing that. So we need to discuss, just part of it, we need to really think and vet
Yeah.
how we would do that and provide guidance to staff so that they can feel confident that the course, whatever it is going to meet the requirements we've been
I mean,
meeting.
there's always going to be some education you get that you're not going to be able to use as credit. You know,
Right.
if you choose to do more, you can always choose to do more.
Right.
But I think the way it is now, it puts TREIC in a position that there's very clear-cut rules. If you're an exempt provider, then they take the course, at face value. Does this cover that content? Okay, fine. But I think if we start laxing that off, it's going to create a lot of gray area. Maybe not for the ICC type situation, but I think it
Well,
opens up
The others.
a whole lot of
There's a
others
subjectivity
that makes a
issue
lot of
that
gray
you're
area there that's going to make,
uncomfortable
logistically, it's going to make it a nightmare for them.
Well, there's
Yeah.
there's ICC classes I take that are like fire protection. Obviously, that's not a TREC issue, so I would never send that continuing education to TREC. It would be electrical, structural, plumbing, decks.
Right, but
know,
you
but-
wouldn't.
But someone
you
else
would,
would.
I think,
That's my problem.
But-
not everybody
okay.
thinks as logically as you would in that type of
But
respect.
they're
But-
inspectors.
it does make sense to me. It does make
You all
sense
are
to me,
not
though.
the
There are vast swaths of education that would be applicable that we just don't have the guidance on what to do with
know
them.
how to approve.
So I didn't mean to cut that off and say, I just wanted everyone to be aware that is a potential danger, is that we open things up too much and we end up being back in the workplace where we were before.
So how do we as a committee help? I mean, how do we help to clarify or narrow down the courses that you are allowed, that would be easier for TREC to know this exempt provider, this is a class that falls into the right category or not? Because I don't know how many people use exempt providers either. Is that a large percentage of inspectors do?
I don't know about a large percentage, but enough that when it does come up, it's complex and time consuming.
Okay.
We have had issues in the past where we've let inspectors know that we've advised TDLR, for example, to just come to us and get approval, like Lee said, and all of your plumbing and electrical license and HV license courses. Those would probably be relevant. But they would have to meet our standard for design and delivery too, which is important. And we've just, recently incorporated that. You were looking at exam passage rate data and seeing an improvement. So I guess I'm kind of going back and forth with Tony too, which is we have implemented these standards. Do you want to release that control? So the best thing for us would be, what is your consensus on this? What direction do you want to go? And then we can help guide rule language to accomplish that. But I think it's your call as far as the committee. What do you want to see acceptable, and what do you want us to see?
I would think any ICC course provided by ICC or an approved ICC provider.
Including fire?
Sure, including fire, could be approved without question.
Yeah.
Beyond that, when you go to TDLR stuff and state plumbing and some of those, backflow really is not pertinent. You could say it is because we do sprinkler systems. So I guess you could consider it pertinent. We're approving septic stuff, septic courses all the time. Septic is not even an optional system, is it?
Yeah.
So is sprinklers.
So, I guess that my opinion would be that we should accept any ICC course, either provided by ICC or an approved ICC. And then not blanketly approve other agency stuff.
Okay, so you'd want to single out ICC.
I would.
Any code organization or just ICC?
ICC and NEC.
So if I'm not mistaken, we currently accept the ICC courses by ICC, not by ICC approved providers, because they're not exempt, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you're
So,
wanting to
although
add
most of
ICC
them-
approved providers.
Well, that makes it easier for the
There
staff.
goes
If
my
it's an
electrical
ICC course, you've got a course that's an ICC course provided by ABC, then the staff shouldn't have to fight for approval on that. It should be easier for the staff. If it's
Does
an electrical course,
that course meet the design requirements and the exam requirements that we've put into place for all of the other courses?
Yeah, and this has kind of been that gray area where
Right.
these the code things are usually things that this is separate from the TDLR stuff, right? I mean, the code courses, we don't do that kind of review, or do we? In terms of delivery method and exam and all that sort of stuff.
Well, that's the way the current rule is set up. We would do that, and because we talked about the providers were exempt, but the courses weren't.
Well,
Of
but
course,
the only-
Kristen pointed out.
The only requirement is that it covers the subject matter that's appropriate for inspector
Okay.
CE, and that the course is current and accurate. So you wouldn't want somebody offering a 2008 course in 2017.
So by this rule, it wouldn't have to meet design and delivery requirements, but if you wanted ICC courses and ICC approved courses exempted, then you would need to clarify that.
So we would have to add providers approved by ICC as an exempt provider.
To me, that just takes away some of the control of TREIC and the oversight of TREIC on the education and the continuing education that's there.
And it makes, well, I guess having ICC certification is just something that you do because you want to. And it's not required by a TREIC license, other than the fact that everything, even though we want to say we don't inspect for code, every one of our courses is based on international residential code. So there's a conflict there. If we don't use, if we can't accept ICC courses, yet we're teaching international residential code to get our inspectors qualified. And I realize it's a business choice. I chose to have a license that was more involved than the one that TREIC, gave.
Code is taught as the basis, the foundation of what we do.
Right.
Granted,
So the
that's
more
what
you
it is.
know, the
But we're
better
not
you
code
are.
inspectors, we're
Right. But we're not code
performance.
inspectors.
It's
Right.
about the performance of
Right.
the structure and the systems within it.
Okay, so,
And we do accept the ICC courses for credit
Right.
as long as they're offered by ICC.
right.
So it's
for
just-
instance,
And-
almost all
think most
electrical
are.
courses that I take, they're ICC providers,
Right.
but they don't have,
ICC
they don't
doesn't have their own
order enough,
instructors.
they don't give you enough
Right.
CEUs for one of their little online courses. So if you take an 8-hour course online, literally it's 8 hours. It times you. You cannot, even if you're
Sure.
smart and finish early, you have to sit there for 8 hours. And so, there's no 8-hour continuing education course in electrical that any provider I've seen has the same quality and questions and all of that. And they're third party to ICC because, of course, they don't have a million of their own courses. They rely on content experts around the country to help do that. So I'm not trying to
Well, it sounds
speak
like
for
there's a
myself.
couple of-
I just think that maybe there's a way to come up with a list.
It sounds like there's a couple of things going on here. You have the committee who has been trying to improve the education being offered to inspectors. That's kind of been the path that the committee as a whole has been on for the past couple of years.
Right.
And so we have these rules in place, and we have exempted certain providers. So it seems to me that if we feel comfortable, if the committee feels comfortable that ICC courses, regardless of who they are offered by, are relevant, the rigor is appropriate, and the content is appropriate for continuing education credit, then one option would simply be to add a third category of exempt providers. Third-party providers of ICC courses. So that is one option. Then you think about, well, is there a need for other options? And that question, you begin to get into what I'll call the slippery slope, because if you start expanding the types and the quantity of exempt providers, then there's not going to be
William has to say it, I'm sorry.
there's not going to be a need for us to approve providers.
Once you open it for one, you're opening that can of worms.
Right. So it's a question, what direction does the committee want to take at this juncture?
Right.
And adding those third-party providers for ICC, I mean, if it's a blanket, anything ICC related is acceptable, there need to be.
I think it has to be an ICC approved provider.
Right.
You could
But I
limit
mean,
it that
but
way.
if we're doing it that way, where if they just submit it and it's an ICC course and it's approved provider, it need to be an additional change, because right now we still have the caveat that it needs to meet these requirements, relevant requirements. And I don't know if maybe that's a step in between where we fix the problem with the third-party providers that are approved by ICC, but staff still has the ability to make sure the course is applicable to inspection standards.
I think that's fine. I have no problem with that.
Can you work on language for that? Do we need to take action today on this?
See, my concern there is if you open it up to ICC, somebody's going to come up and say, what about
Well, I know
what about
there'll be
plumbing?
blowback.
What about plumbing code? What about NEC? What about this? And it's just
ICC
gonna,
covered plumbing, electrical, mechanical,
I know,
everything.
but I'm telling you, once you open that up to
It's already, Lee, that's already open.
no, it's not.
It is. ICC courses are approved now.
They are, but not their
Regardless.
third-party providers. But what about third-party providers for NEC or
Well,
plumbing or whatnot?
It's been fuzzy coming in.
We're just gonna have to agree to disagree on that.
Yeah.
I think right now, TREIC
It's
has
happening anyway,
the discretion to look at the
Well,
course.
yes.
Yeah.
And they'll still,
I mean,
They're
they'll
coming
still
in
have
and we
the
Without
just don't have-
clarification, your
authority.
Well, we can bring back some rule language to the next meeting that would add ICC-approved providers as an exempt provider. And then, the committee could continue to debate and think about whether or not you want to move forward with that exemption and suggest that the commission propose that as a rule change.
Why do we need to wait for the next meeting to do
To
that?
give
she's talking about-
TREIC time, to give staff time to.
I'm
do
talking
it.
about
Putting
bringing
the
back
verbiage together.
the language, because we didn't have any direction on what the committee wants to do. And even today, even if you said, this is what we want to do, I'm guessing you would want to look at the language before we send it up to the commission. That's usually our practice.
We definitely don't have to decide absolutely today. We just need to get this particular item in motion so that we can make a balanced decision on it. hopefully
Do we
soon.
have kind of a consensus about this? You're not, I know.
I'm not sold on it. I don't like the thought. Right now, TREC has full discretion. It's very clear cut on what can be approved and what can't be approved. If you're a non-exempt provider, they take a look at the content of the course. Does it meet the relevance? Is it current and accurate and everything else? Great, approved.
I guess what the issue is that staff there's such a gray area, right?
There's a
Well,
lot
there
of
is, but, I
subjectivity
mean,
in there,
we're-
and it's putting things on you
Yeah,
that,
that's why this came up.
But I would want it to be clearly vetted, and if you want to recommend this to the education committee to look into further, you could do that, and then they could.
There are a couple other items that we need to bring forward to them anyway, to the education subcommittee. So, I mean, we could have a meeting to discuss that as well as the other items too.
Staff can do research too as to what the standards for approval for ICC providers are.
Yeah.
if it's worded
And that's just
rightly,
the
it could give us
MWR,
more
some of this
control,
stuff.
because right now, it's in this fuzzy area. I mean, and I agree with you, there's a slippery slope there where it could just open up.
Yeah, I don't have a problem if it's just ICC. Truth be told, I really don't. If it's just ICC approved providers, I don't have a problem with that. My problem is if we start with that one, somebody coming down the line, what about this, what about this, what about this, and it kind of just keeps opening up. That's my concern. I really don't have a problem with ICC approved providers doing
And
that.
that would be problematic for staff too.
It would
Exactly.
be, but you guys have control over making those recommendations as a committee. People can bring that forward, you can discuss them and decide whether or not someone needs to be added, and whether they don't need to be added, but that's within your authority to make those recommendations.
I just have a question here. So, I like ICC. I think that the city of Austin should have the ICC as a code that's here, but they just shot down the International Plumbing Code with the ICC here in Austin. It's a uniform plumbing code. So you can say, okay, we're going to go with ICC, but we're actually using the Uniform Plumbing Code in the city of Austin. So if you're going to be teaching ICC courses and then someone goes out there and looks around and then says this is not actually accurate, but they don't understand that they're actually should be looking at the Uniform Plumbing Code, is that an issue? I mean, how far do we go down that list to say who's acceptable and who isn't? Because a lot of this is going to be on the kind of the who adopts what in what municipality.
Well, see, that's been kind of when we get our license and we're taught code to some extent, we can't go from one municipality to the next and quote code.
Yeah.
We don't have any way. One thing is most of the time we don't see a house unless you do construction inspections, which I do in certain areas, and I know the code there. But I don't jump all over the state.
Right.
Yeah. Otherwise I have to learn. So as home inspectors, we don't quote code, and we don't.
Well, and they're not inspecting for code
We're not.
either.
Yeah.
No,
We're not-
but
although
you're
it's
giving
a
them
base.
exempt CE hours.
Right.
And so it varies. I check all the red lines in our office, and so it basically means I have to check and make sure that whatever we're doing for whatever house or commercial building is to the code of that area. And you would not believe how much stuff goes on just around Central Texas even when it comes to that. So it's kind of, I don't know.
And we're not code inspectors, but we reference code. As inspectors,
Yeah.
we reference
Right.
code
Well,
all the time.
right,
House
right.
built in the 30s,
But I
it
don't-
doesn't have GSCI. We're gonna say, hey, it's a safety issue because you don't have GSCI, but it wasn't required when the house was built, and you have that
Right.
discussion, but we
But I
still
don't think
talk about
that,
code.
for instance, uniform plumbing code and ICC adopted code for what we see as inspectors is going to make a huge difference on the faucets, the handles, the drain, a P-trap, or a sewer clean out. I'm just saying the things we see that are built around. So we don't know
Yeah, so
how
this
the
is
PEX
internally
plumbing was
received,
secured, or what types of fittings they used, or whether it was compressed or whatever. So I don't know that specifically, but I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying, but I think that in general, IRC courses for any inspector, that are the newer courses and what they're teaching in the schools is relevant to, and good, good reinforcement as a continuing education for every inspector.
And there's nothing that
and-
prevents
and-
people
and
from
you're
getting
not-
that
yes,
education. All we're talking about is
exactly.
getting credit.
I think it's a good
for that
idea
education.
to be able to get credit for that, because at least you know why something was done. And if you're aware that this is being done at this time, you can see that there's maybe deficiencies now. I mean, it really is about understanding the whole construction of the building, which makes you a better inspector.
It's hard,
It's just-
and obviously in core classes, you learn how to frame, you learn about lumber, you learn about, all the specifics that when you actually do a TREIC inspection, sometimes make no difference at all. You know
Right.
more than you need. So,
I mean, I don't know, it just seems like it was a slippery slope that you're talking about, that if you allow one, then you have to think about other different plumbing codes that you might have to actually have some education on what's different. But if it's just very surface, then maybe it's not an issue.
Very generic in nature.
yeah, so, I don't
And
know. I think-
ICC is the accepted code,
Yeah.
period.
Pretty much.
Austin,
Yeah.
it's accepted by the state of Texas.
And since our form isn't used for commercial,
Well,
we
we
don't
were-
even need to worry about anything to do with commercial.
We were all upset when it didn't get past the.
Well, that's the city of Austin,
Yeah.
you're dealing with it.
So maybe what we do is send this to
Different.
the
Yeah.
education subcommittee and have you guys hash it out and give it some more thought, and if you need for them to come up with.
We can do that,
some
but I would make a
outline.
motion to go ahead and move forward with the language to accept ICC approved providers today.
Well, I mean, there's a motion on the floor there's, so I guess the question is there a second, or does the committee want to send it to the education subcommittee?
Is there a motion to accept? Is there a second?
To approve for ICC or to move to a subcommittee?
No,
To approve,
to bring,
to approve today.
Provide of ICC courses that meet all the other requirements.
Okay.
no, I thought the motion was for us to bring back some language to approve
No, that was not
ICC
the
providers.
Well, that's what you said.
That's,
A motion to move forward, to modify the rule, to accept ICC providers.
Okay, that's not what you said, but yeah, what she heard is what I heard, that's not
that's
what you
what I
said. But
heard.
okay, I know what you mean. If your intended motion is that, then, okay.
okay,
is
and
there-
so we're going to bring back that language at the next meeting to this committee to consider.
Is it first, is there a second for this? Okay.
So then the motion dies.
So the motion, the motion's gonna die, but
motion died.
my suggestion is that it goes to the education subcommittee to discuss how we can better help TREIC approve these courses as they're sent in. I think that's all of what most of this is about, is there's a little bit of, it's hard for your,
Well, it's just
Staff.
about, if you want us to accept these courses, then we need language to do that. If you were not interested in us accepting these courses, then we'll continue on as we have been. But the issue has been raised by several inspectors who have come to us saying, why can't you accept these courses? So now it's in your court.
Yeah, I think clarification on both staff and the people out there doing the courses, because they don't
Right.
know what to submit. They think they're submitting things that are acceptable, and then they get a letter from us saying, we can't accept any of these things. And no, why not? It says they're acceptable, so, you know.
Well, I mean, that's
It's an
something-
ICC course, but it's provided by a third party.
So-
That's why you can't accept
Okay,
it.
That's just
So
an
what we-
education.
so
Yeah.
what we really need then is the language, is for you to come up with the language.
Well, if that's what the education
Right.
committee is recommending.
Yeah.
I think
If-
this
if-
needs to go to education.
So it needs to
subcommittee.
go to the education subcommittee and let them
Figure
direct
out what-
staff or whomever as to the language we need, so that the full committee can approve that language eventually for the rule change. Are you good with
That's the committee's position, that's fine.
that? Okay.
We've
So-
just been addressing this on and on for the last 3 years.
Yeah,
And it's time to move forward with something. fix it for
But
the
that is to
staff.
move forward. First, we need to see, I think first we need to give it to you for definitely, your subcommittee, right? You're still education.
I'm not the chairman, but
Oh,
I'm.
okay. Who's chair?
I thought you were the chair.
Greg is
Greg
chair.
Is the chair.
Okay.
But,
Oh, he's not.
Greg
He's
is
not. We
absent.
don't even have but 2 people other than me on the education subcommittee if Greg isn't.
Well, Barbara
Yeah.
Evans is
Oh,
on.
okay, I'm sorry, I was looking at my list. I have you, Brad, and Greg.
That's correct.
And then you're a,
You're an
But
innocent
if Greg's-
you're an innocent bystander.
Okay, but is Greg still participating? Is what I'm asking. If he's
he will
not,
if we
then
call
we're-
him.
then
yeah,
we're
he
not.
will. He's just,
Okay.
yeah, he just wasn't
just
at
have
the,
to
but
be
he will, yeah, he's,
Oh, okay. That's where I was
Participating
confused.
until replaced.
right.
He just wasn't
So when
available
did it go
today.
Okay, and I just wanted to
Is
double.
it gonna go away?
Did-
So,
right.
so we're gonna give it
No,
to the
it's not gonna go
education
away.
And it shouldn't go away. We need to address it.
We need to
Well,
fix it.
and
We need
not
to
being
fix
an
it for the committee and
inspector,
the
I'm
staff.
hearing
No, I just wondering.
an understanding that there
Is this an association issue
quality
too?
Courses.
But just
courses and not.
No.
Not to
You
my
all know
knowledge.
what they are.
no.
We've identified that. Okay.
So do we need a motion just?
Not to move it to,
No, okay,
no, it's
so-
just, we'll make a note to add it to the other 2 items that,
Okay. So this
Or-
is an action item to send it to the,
yes, ma'am,
to
yes,
the
ma'am,
education committee and let
Because you
them.
wanted to have another meeting.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's what I want.
No,
I need
it's
to come to
not
Austin.
that. I think.
Yeah,
No,
Brad
it's-
has nothing better to do. It's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
can't work.
Well, I'll be here with
But
you.
Roy brings up a good point. It's just trade associations. 'Cause
Well,
once
It's a
ICC,
whole
They're not, no,
different
no,
ball.
You're
see,
right. You're
if-
absolutely
if
right. It
you-
is a
if
whole
you-
different
If you guys
ballgame. That's my
remember, when
point.
this rule came up initially, when we were carving out the exempt providers, the recommendation was to get rid of them entirely. And then the committee said, no, we need to have something so that people who take these courses through these code courses and also through these other governmental entities, that they're able to get credit for them.
Yep.
And at the time, trade associations initially were exempt from CE, but they're not. They're required to be approved providers
Correct.
now. So they're never, that's when they were carved out of that exempt provider notice, was when that rule was brought back in.
So I have a question then, if we're talking about ICC, when a continuing education is taught by an association, are they approved by ICC to teach those courses?
If they're teaching ICC courses, maybe, I don't know, but
Do they get that stamp that says, because when I get a certificate, it clearly, when I do it from my certification, it says ICC all over it. But otherwise, it just says Terry or TREIC or whoever.
Well, but Terry is an approved provider.
Of ICC courses.
Of
TREIC
TREIC
courses.
So they may have,
That's an
Terry
ICC.
TREIC, they're all
TREIC
approved
may-
CE providers.
Okay.
and they may
Yes,
have
that's all.
already gotten that course
Okay.
approved, even though it's an ICC course, it may be already approved as a, I mean, I don't know if that's the
Okay, I
case or
just-
not.
I
but
didn't
they-
know.
Well, let's say
how that
TREIC or
works.
Terry decides they have an ICC approved course, but it's not approved through TREC. Would they,
Oh, I
with
see.
this, would they not be able to do it as a workaround to where they don't have to get the course approved by TREC because it's an ICC approved course?
If they're an
Possibly.
approved
If they're
ICC provider, which they
approved
may or
by
may not be.
Right.
They
ICC
offer
to
courses.
offer.
And so I think one of the things we can bring to the table at the committee, at the subcommittee, is what exactly the process is for those providers that get approved by ICC, just to get an idea of what sort of rigor they have to go through.
That's just more, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to like.
No,
throw
that's
more out.
good
No,
stuff.
that's okay.
But I
It's
think
just-
that'll help color the conversation if we know exactly what those providers have
Right.
to do. If it's just they pay a $50 fee and get rubber stamped, then that might change the idea
But
of
if
whether or
there's
not
Because
they
it
should.
creates a workaround
Yeah.
for getting
Yeah.
approval
But
for that
if-
course. That's what I was talking about on
Yeah,
that slippery slope. I don't want to open that door up and have people find a way around
Yeah.
getting TREC approval
Yeah.
for courses.
That's what the USGBC does. They make you pay for credits, and then you offer those credits after the course. They have no idea whether it meets those standards.
Well, and that was what we were that's kind of a similar situation we were having initially with the college thing, was that there wasn't the oversight that we felt, that you guys and the commission felt we needed for education. And we've carved that out now, and as
And we got the-
Jen pointed out, there seems to be some positive results
Well,
based on
yeah,
it.
the improvement is real, and so I don't want to step backwards, obviously. and-
So it's
and
just
I know that
weighing all
Brad
that
does,
stuff.
And it's just a matter of getting all the right language so that there's no,
And the
there's no-
specificity about what,
Yeah,
where we go with that.
and once we're there, then we don't have to talk
Specific.
about it anymore. Okay, so you have that on your list?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. All right, so any more discussion about agenda item 8? Okay, agenda item 9, discussion and possible action regarding clarifying and simplifying the preamble language of the inspection report form.
Okay, so the chair and I discussed this briefly, I guess, at the commission meeting. The reason it came, and I think you and I discussed it previously maybe as well when on an SOP committee. The reason it came up recently was I had a couple of friends close on houses. They got their inspection report and could not make any sense of the first couple of pages of it, which is, just paragraphs upon paragraphs.
Yeah.
What's that?
You need different friends.
Anyway, so I didn't know, the reason this is on the agenda was, the chair asked me to add to the agenda to see if maybe, to gauge the committee's temperature about possibly reworking this and not getting rid of this information, but making it more reader-friendly for people. And we could come up with, and that would go through, I guess, the SOP subcommittee at that point, but come up with some language that would simplify the legalistic text on these first pages, page and a half.
Can you be more specific?
Well, one of my suggestions, when Tony and I discussed this, was possibly scroll back up just a little bit. There might be sections of this or paragraphs that we could actually move to appropriate sections of the report. For instance, there's that CSST part, could we move that to the electrical, like a header or something in the electrical section? Or,
Well, that's part of the OPI.
That's the OPI.
okay, we can't do
change
that.
But there seems to be a lot of redundant sort of,
And we can look at it.
yeah, just redundant sort of, what am I trying to say? Issues dealing with what's expected of the client, what's expected of the inspector, liability issues, all that stuff out. And I think if it's important, which all this is, it could be written in a way that actually conveys that message easier.
Could be more
Because
direct.
reading this, you guys are in the weeds. This makes sense to you. You hand this to someone who's buying a house and they look at it and they go, I don't, this is a bunch of text. I'm not even going to look at this. But if you make it so they will look at it, then it actually has purpose. Just an idea. I mean, I just want to get, like I say, gauge the committee's temperature about whether or not to do that.
Can you give me the specifics of what the issue was that brought this to your attention?
Yeah, they saw this and it was just to made their eyes cross. They couldn't understand any
They
of
weren't
it.
attorneys?
They weren't attorneys. Or
But this,
inspectors.
basically, that's
bunch of
the OPI
gobbledygook.
form.
No. I'm not talking
Only
about.
half
I'm
of
not
it.
talking about this part. I'm talking about this first. This
First page and a
The
half.
TREIC standards are a minimum. Blah 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 blah. While there may be other parts and components noted, all this. The inspector's not required. I mean, there's all these knots in there, but they're buried in a paragraph. If there's a way to make it easier for people to understand what's expected of the inspector, what's expected of the client, and those ideas about it's a visual inspection. We may recommend other people for using. All that stuff is important information, but it's all sort of hidden in this long page and a half of text. So, again, just a thought, not pushing one way or another. I'm just saying that two people came up to me, different people, and said, "This is confusing."
I've never had anybody come and say anything about the preamble, but I mean,
Okay.
it's we haven't really looked at it in a long time,
Huh?
so
Oh, really?
I don't think it's necessarily bad. Even if we go through it as a committee and say, you know what, it kind of is what it is. At least we went through it and we've looked at it, but because I don't think we've actually looked at the preamble in a long time.
We didn't.
Other than adding the OPI language, that was the last time
Yeah, and
we
that
did
was
it,
the-
and we weren't really focusing on any of the other
Yeah, it
stuff.
was just the OPI.
Just
stuff.
adding that to the end of
the
it.
CSST. Yeah.
The preamble came directly out of the rules.
Yeah.
And the SOP.
Yeah, a lot of it is 535-227.
Right.
Right.
When did they phase out? Just halfway through or? pretty
Yeah, I
much?
didn't ask them. They just told me their eyes crossed.
If they got a 70-page report, which we're seeing crazy reports out there with that many pages, they don't read them in the first place.
Yep.
You lost
But-
them after
but-
15 or 20
but if
That's
you
why a
get-
lot of those guys do summary pages. They just go to the end, look at the summary, and that's all they read.
Yeah, well, that's Mike about my opinion on summary.
Anyway, we don't have to do it. It was just a discussion that
That's fine.
that the chair and I brought up,
and
and
reviewing it, but
Yeah.
I'm not really in favor of changing the
Okay.
form at this point personally.
no, that's fine.
I'm not either, to be honest with you. I think there's a lot of CYA in there. I think there's a lot of, it covers a lot that's there, but it never hurts to look at it. Look at it and see
I'll review.
if
I'm good with
there's
reviewing.
something in there that we're just not seeing that, we can get rid of this paragraph because it's already covered here or here, fine.
I guess, yeah. we
So is
get-
that a consensus to refer to the SOP subcommittee to just take a look at it?
Be
Yes,
okay with that?
yeah, we'll refer that one to the SOP so we
I
can
know.
review it.
Would you, Roy?
Let's reinvent the wheel.
This is not a.
But don't you
that's
have
not much.
important information up front?
Oh, no,
So if you bury it in other parts where people tend not
I
to
don't
get it.
think that's. I think it's just clarifying
That was
this.
a
If there's a
mistake.
simpler way, to spell out what this information is,
I'm with you.
then that's
I actually present this as part of my presentation to my client. I go through this
Yeah.
to let them know what's in it.
I think that's great.
This is.
I think it's
Yeah, I don't skip
fantastic.
to the inspected,
told-
not inspected, not present, it's deficient.
Kind of soul
I
of
let
it.
them know what's in these first
It's
two
the
pages.
soul of the deal.
You kind of have to, otherwise they're not going to read it, or read it in the way that's
Yeah.
intended.
Yeah.
And
They don't.
Well,
Yeah.
also, my inspector agreement kind of says this similar stuff, what you do and don't do.
Yeah, my
So
inspector agreement's
it's-
right below
Yeah.
all this anyway,
So it's all
before you get to the report.
repetitive when you
Yeah.
do an inspection agreement and you
It's
have
5 pages
this.
of crap before you get to the
It is, that's what I was just counting on my report.
Yeah, it's
How
like,
many
I
pages
got
before they
5
get to
pages
the
of stuff
report?
before
It's
you get to the
5.
report, so it's just,
Yeah.
we'll look at it.
Well, so we'll refer this to the standards practice subcommittee and see if there's anything that comes from it. Okay, Any more discussion on agenda 9? Agenda item 10, discussion regarding rule review of 22 TAC 535 subchapter R. I don't remember what the...
Oh, you had asked me to put it on there because you liked what we did with the SOPs, and you thought it was an idea to start maybe looking at because we do rule review every 4 years. When did we do it last? 2 years ago when it was adopted?
It was 2013, 2014. It kind of
just
that fiscal year 2014.
the idea that we actually have a process in place where we start looking at the rules with the concept that we make them easier to read and easier to follow and take out redundancies and that sort of thing. Because we didn't really, to be fair, we didn't really spend the time we probably should have on subchapter R last time we did this. And so that was it's just you wanted me to add it as a part of the discussion to possibly start the process of looking at the sections to see if we can clean things up, if there's things missing, if there's redundancies, that sort of thing. Make it easier to read. So.
Lee, Brad, Barbara, Matt, any discussion on this, or should we just go ahead and just start the process of it and just
well, it won't start until fiscal year 2018.
Okay.
So we're in fiscal year 2017 right now.
Right.
So this wouldn't be something we would begin looking at until September at the earliest, because September 1 is the start of FY 2018.
Okay, so we'll just revisit it.
Yeah, we can do it.
Everybody okay with that? So nothing needs to be done with this right now. All right, so item 11, request for future meeting agenda items. And what do we have?
One thing that we did not bring forward to this this committee meeting that we need to, and was a request made last time to look into clarifying section 535-226 regarding whether or not a professional inspector can delegate to a real estate inspector, whether or not they can, go out. Apprentice. They can delegate to a real estate inspector to go out and supervise an apprentice on an inspection. There was some confusion as to about what all of that meant in the rule, and whether or not it was in fact meant to delegate that authority, or if it was just real estate inspector as a term of art. So we need to look at clarifying that and figuring out what the committee wants and making
what it means.
Make the rule clear as to what right.
The rule as it's written is fairly clear.
It's clear, but if there's some confusion about if it's
interpretation
if it's prohibited for if you need direct supervision for an apprentice by a professional inspector, the confusion is how can a real estate inspector then be delegated the authority to supervise an apprentice when they're not getting the direct supervision from the professional inspector.
Yeah, I was thinking there was something with definitions and different conflicts between definitions.
Right, but what we're talking about is the possibility of modifying the rule to where real estate inspectors can't directly supervise apprentices.
Yeah.
I understand the modification, but the rule is very clear right now that they can.
Well, we're going to add that to discussion.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if...
Well, it's not really clear.
That was the problem. I thought it was hard.
Because the question is, the rule uses the term real estate inspector in several places, but does that term mean real estate inspector as a license holder, or is it just referring to, in the general context, a real estate inspector? So it could be a professional or a real estate.
We've discussed that though, Kristen, for the last 10 years.
Well, let's clarify.
I know, but we need to clarify
I thought we had clarified it a number of times in the past.
And maybe the committee did, but the rule is still unclear.
Okay, it's unclear to you, but it's perfectly clear to me.
Okay.
It isn't clear to me. I think it references real estate inspector as a general inspector and not necessarily a licensed specific real estate inspector or professional inspector. And I think the intent was that it was supposed to be a professional inspector to directly supervise an apprentice, but the way that's worded...
That was not the intent of the committee when it was done that way, I promise you.
Okay, so we then need to...
Then I think we need to look at it again.
Well, and we can... staff can do a little research to determine, when that, if we can determine what the discussion was at that time and bring that forward. I don't know if there's
anything.
Yeah, I don't know if there's
Doesn't
a,
matter.
I don't know if there's a particular committee, is there, what subcommittee would this go through? Would it
Too
go
far
through-
back. I may have notes on.
No,
the
that's
way
fine,
back.
but in terms of having a, if we want to go through the, and I know we don't necessarily know if we need to or not, but
It
Well, I
really
mean,
could fall under education
it's
or
a rule.
It
standards,
could
actually.
either way.
It's
We can just bring it up to the full committee and just do it.
yeah.
okay,
That way.
all right. Well, we'll make sure that's on the next agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry,
and-
I'll get more snacks.
And then, just real quick, we're gonna bring the other thing the subcommittee needs to look at is the clarifying, whether we're gonna look into the ride-along stuff. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier or not, ride-along inspector, whether or not, that was, at the last committee, it was decided that the subcommittee would look at whether or not the ride-along inspectors could fail their students, and whether or not we wanted to develop an instructor approval form for ride-along instructors. So this education subcommittee needs to look at those two items as well. In addition, yeah, evaluation. In addition to the item we brought forward today, which was the CD provider.
Any other requests?
So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's on the, as far as,
if you don't mind.
for fingerprinting,
Mm-hmm.
in order to get your fingerprinting fast pass, on the old website, you used to go down to that third bullet and hit it. Now you have to go for an inspector. They now have to go out and hit the link on there for the real estate agent to get your license. And then you have to go under the real estate agent when you go out to hit the licensing. But you don't, if you go out there and you say, I'm seeking a license for an inspector, if you hit the inspector one, the fingerprinting fast pass information is not out. So you have to go into the real estate agent to actually find it.
So we need a link provided.
So you're saying
for
we
the
need-
Yeah, if you
inspector.
hit become licensed,
Yeah, that's what this is.
yeah,
So
then
we
you
need
come
to-
down and
That's a
hit
good
real estate
catch.
agent,
That's a good-
but if you come down to inspector, it's not in the inspector language. To become
Well,
licensed.
hold on a second. It might be in the, this is an overview, so it might be in this part of it. But are apprentices, do they have to? Yeah, become an
Yeah.
apprentice.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is right there.
Fingerprints.
So what you do, what this is just an overview of the different licensing types. You go into each one, and then it's got the information about fingerprinting. and-
Is it
yeah.
under all of them, not just apprentice?
If you click on
Because if
fingerprint-
you're going straight for your professional license and not being an apprentice.
It's, yes, it's on all of them.
It's on all of them?
Yes, and we can, if we need to, we can fix this page to let people know that they need to click through to get to
Yeah,
the
because
the
that's,
information, but
because that's
it's-
the questions that keep coming back to us from
While you're
our
on
new
this-
person. They say, I can't find it.
Yeah, I've had people call me,
About
by the way.
fingerprint?
Where is the inspector advisor committee link or list? How do you get to it?
It's right here under, if you go to any of the inspector links on the page, on the website, so you go to inspector, there's the inspector licenses are the
Well,
only ones
there-
that have this,
there-
that have this little side thing that have the pocket SOPs, the related forms, the rules, and the inspector committee, and it should be that way for renewal as well.
Okay, well, I
Yeah.
had some lady
It's right
calling
there.
me because she couldn't get in touch with TREIC. And I'm like, how'd you get my number?
Yeah, it's right there on the,
She's trying to know if I
why you're the
have
chair,
phone
you're at
number
the
to
top of the
call
list, girl.
TREIC. And I'm like, it's on their website.
That's right up there.
Well, I can't get in touch, so can you help me? And I'm like, no, I can't, But anyway, it was a crazy.
She can help
She's
you.
probably
She's kind of a
having
big deal.
trouble getting through the phone line.
Right, that's what it
Because
was. Yeah.
right now, we're having extensive call volumes, so the hold times are long.
Yeah.
And
It was a-
even when they send emails, the email response time
It's slow too.
is slow.
Yeah,
Slower.
I think that was what it was all about. So she calls me because it was an inspector question.
There's a question.
Thursday, about 2 o'clock, I made a phone. Thursday, about 2 o'clock, I made a phone call, and what came back from the base was that they could not take the call and they could not hold for the call try again some other day,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Well, and our phone system, just so that you're aware, only allows a certain number of callers to hold in the queue. And then once that number is reached, once the queue is full, then a next caller will get the message that was just referenced that, we are unable to accept your call and we are unable to put you in the queue, and to please call back at another time.
Gosh, that's like Dallas
If you get that
911.
number, I'll give you numbers from
I mean-
commissioners you can call.
He's very resourceful. He worked around.
By the way, I found that list on the website.
He found that.
I figured I'd start with the ones in my area.
Well, I guess being at the top doesn't help, because I've gotten some strange phone calls. Okay, so, any more ideas for future agenda items? And we can add between now and then if
And
we
then,
need to. or-
yeah, and if there's any, any issues that come up that you guys want to see on the agenda, make sure you let the chair know. So we
Yes,
can
I'm
add
happy
them.
to take your call.
Or you can call me
Or you
and I'll
can
talk to the
text.
chair. Whichever, just, make sure we know about them. So,
And any future meeting date suggestions? Tony, I'm gonna let you do, we have,
It's a commission meeting.
yeah,
it's May
First.
1st.
Oh, first?
May Day.
I have May 3rd.
Do we need to meet before then?
I don't think so.
I would think so.
No, I mean,
We don't want to burden the staff with a meeting when they're trying to get ready for that.
Yeah.
but The day after would be fine.
No, we have the board meeting after that.
They won't have anything.
Yeah, we typically just meet once a quarter unless there's a reason to meet other than that. Something I didn't discuss is we're still in the process of trying to set up interviews for new committee members. We're hoping to get those probably done in the next, couple of weeks, so that we'll have a recommendation to the commission.
For the May meeting.
For the
Yes,
May
for the
meeting.
meeting. Yes, sir.
So we looking at what, July? Before the next?
Yeah, I mean,
or
it's
the
something-
subsequent.
you can meet any time between May and August. There's that, and then we need to have a couple of subcommittee meetings in there as well. So, if there's any, I don't know what access to.
Okay, so July. Everybody look at their schedules.
17th, July, maybe? What do y'all got?
I can do that.
Staff got?
17th of July, let me see.
I mean, that's just a number I pulled up on the calendar.
It works.
I'm leaving the next day for England, but I'll be here for that day.
What about the 10th?
The 10th would work too.
Yeah, I just want you to have time
We
to
just don't want
prepare.
the 4th.
No, I have plenty of time to prepare.
I can't do the 10th.
The 10th
The
is.
17th
Okay, so the
works,
17th is good?
like I said, I'll be here, won't be here the next day.
It'll be A, B, C, A, D, G, F.
Yes, it will be. You'll be lucky if there's any letters on it.
Highlighting
What is that?
everywhere.
Next time I'm sending just a blank agenda.
Okay, so July 17th at 10 a.m.
So, does that
And
work?
any
Okay,
subcommittee meeting?
hold on.
The commission meeting will be Friday, the 4th of July, normally, because it's the first Friday.
Of August, you mean?
Or is it I'm sorry. Yes, of August.
No, it's typically the third. It was only the first because of some conflicts, but it's typically the third.
Monday.
Commission is the third Monday, and the board meeting is the third Friday, I think.
Okay.
Typically.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that
Let's see, it might be
Doesn't have
on
time.
here.
I don't see it on the calendar.
No, it's not on the calendar.
When are you going to be back?
But typically, it's that
said
third.
anything. Let's see what they said.
In June, so.
Calendar.
We can do sometime mid to
Yeah.
that part of June.
In May.
Okay.
May and
It
June.
would be the 14th is what they're
Of August.
suggesting. Of August.
14th of August.
Yes.
So that gives us plenty of time
Yeah,
to
it's a
meet
month.
The
and
17th is
get
fine.
information to you guys and to get them information.
Okay, 10 a.m. and then I guess we can schedule the subcommittees in between now.
Yeah, I can
and
get
then.
on that, right?
I can get with the subcommittee members and we can schedule that. We'll get them we'll put them on the calendar and then I'll send the whole committee when they're going to be scheduled as well.
Sounds good.
Unless,
Well, I'm just talking
We're just
to Dr.
thinking-
Evans because she's in Austin. It'd be
So-
convenient
okay.
to have that subcommittee meeting.
And what day?
Could make her go through that temple traffic.
Yeah.
Hey. I like land passes. I'd like to stop.
What's a better day for you, the week, Monday or Friday?
Either one is good. It's the middle of the week where things get weird. Well, it's weird all the time, so.
15th
Monday's okay.
for a subcommittee?
15th of
It's
May?
weird. My life is weird.
I'll be here.
That's a week after.
I'm
And
out of town.
Kristen won't be here.
I'm out of town on the 15th.
Much depends on
But,
the legislature doing another
Right.
session.
You guys
Just,
Do you guys have another
The
possible date?
government, yeah,
22nd?
doing more.
22nd of
well, you
May.
guys aren't asking great either. We're not great.
Does 22nd work?
He'll be on phone.
22nd.
I don't have
If he's
anything on the
available.
calendar right now.
Okay.
no.
Does the 22nd work for you, Dr. Evans?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that's the education.
That'll be the
subcommittee.
education subcommittee, yes.
And are we meeting that morning or afternoon?
What time do you
On
want to
the
meet?
22nd.
What time do you want to meet?
Once we know
10 o'clock.
numbers.
That June 22nd?
That's good.
May.
May
May
22nd.
22nd.
It's
And
a
then
Monday.
we can
Schedule
work
2
on
hours
this.
for that.
Yeah. We don't need to have 20-minute conversation right now.
Okay. So May 22nd will be the education subcommittee, and the full committee will meet on July 17th
10 a.m.
at 10 a.m. both.
And we'll bring our English pro with us.
To get in used to, okay.
Little lilt.
Yeah.
Everybody good?
Yes, ma'am.
Alrighty, so I'll repeat that just so we have it. July 17th, 10 a.m. is the full committee meeting, and then the education subcommittee is scheduled to meet the 22nd of May in Austin at
10 a.m. 10 a.m. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It's the
And
only active
standards-
subcommittee right now.
No, the SOP subcommittee is as well.
Okay, and this SOP subcommittee, we don't have anything.
We'll get something
we'll-
else in it. And then I'll
We'll do it
also,
through email.
today, I'll send you guys the A&M course as well for your review, as we discussed earlier.
Right.
And you wanted feedback by Friday, right?
Please.
Alrighty, so we will adjourn. It is 11:44.